of the most important things you can learn to do if you want to be more effective, more productive, not to mention less stressed, is to learn to say no. But unlike the folks who will tell you that no is a complete sentence, I don't think that's the best approach. Sure, grammatically it might be true, but in terms of being a good team player, keeping your positive reputation, and appearing as somebody who's thoughtful and deliberate, I think just the talk to the hand approach is not the way to go. So I'm going to give you 5 different ways to say no based on different scenarios. But what's underlying each of them is that I'm going to give you the techniques in hopes that you can get the other person to realize for themselves that the best answer is for you not to do what they're asking, as opposed to you having to tell them or shut them down or kind of hold up your boundaries firmly. So there are 5 different scenarios we're going to work through that are different reasons why you might say no and different ways that you would do it. So hopefully each of these, or at least one of these, will suit any given situation that you're in. Okay, so here's the first one. The first no is it's not worth it. So in this scenario, somebody's asking you to do something and you're thinking, why would anyone do that? That is not a good use of my time or anyone's time. If that's what you're thinking, that this task shouldn't be done at all, then ask some questions to help the other person come to that conclusion. Where does this fit in with our priorities? What results have we had when we've tried that before? Those kinds of questions, and obviously tailor them to the specific situation you're in. But what you want to get to is helping them understand that doing that is not going to get you any traction on anything that matters. So either that's something that's not important, what do you see us gaining from doing that? Those kinds of questions. Or realizing that while it's a good goal, that's not an activity that would actually get you any progress toward that goal. So as you ask these questions, it will start to become clear to the person that this isn't really a task worth doing. So ultimately, the no is it's not worth it. And you may, fill that in with, here's the other things that I think that I am doing that are really going to be worth the time and effort, going to create a good return on my investment of time and effort. So you're showing them that this ask, not worth it, but there are all sorts of other things I'm doing that are going to be beneficial. So no number 1 is it's not worth it. No number 2 is really about timing. So somebody comes to you and they have this amazing idea for how to think about this, event you're doing in Q4. And you're thinking, it's only the end of Q1 and I'm still trying to bring in the quarter. I have deliverables I have to get. So it's actually questions around the timing in this case that you want to ask. So, when do you think you'll be able to use my input? What would be the first milestone in this project plan? Those kinds of questions to understand exactly how is this timeline going to play out and when are you really required. Again, what you can put into the conversation is, these are the things I'm working on right now. These are my priorities, or this is my priority because I've committed to have this. We need this by the end of the quarter. This thing is launching next month, so I need to have this done. So again, you're both asking questions to assess the timing of their ask and sharing information about the timing of other things. But essentially where you're trying to get to is this no is a not yet. It's not that I'm never going to help you. It's not that I'm never going to engage in this. It's that this isn't the right time for it. So no number 2 is not yet. No number 3, what if they're asking you to do something that is not a good use of your time, or maybe it's just not something you can be successful at? So in this case, you're going to ask questions to suss that out. What expertise do you think is required? What industry is this for? You can look at whether you're at the right level for this request. So you may say, I know you'd love me to come to that meeting. There are 3 people on my team who would love to be at that meeting, and it would be great development for them. Could I ask one of them to come? Or it may be that you have insufficient clout, and you may say, that decision that you want made, I can't make that call. And me coming to the meeting, you're just going to have a follow-up meeting with my boss. So I recommend you have them. So this third kind of no is it's not me. Again, you might say, this is what I'm doing. These are the things I'm really useful for or can add value on, but not these things. So no number 3, not me. That brings us to no number 4. And no number 4 is a partial no. It's a nah. And what I mean by that is somebody's coming to you with a request where part of the request makes sense and you might say yes to it, but all of this stuff around the request is not something that you can say yes to. Now, no number 4 actually pairs with the first 3. So it may be yes to this, but the rest of it's not worth it. You know, this part of reporting makes a ton of sense, but all this other bump, nobody reads that anyway. You might pair not all of it with a not yet, which is I'll do this now. I think this stuff can wait until we're a little closer or we have more data. You can pair not all of it with not me, which is I'll do this bit because I think that's uniquely something I can do, but everything else I'd like you to, either you do some of it or somebody else do it. So not all of it is a really great way of taking something that might be really big and might throw you off of your own priorities, and it allows you to say no to part of it while still being able to key in on the part that maybe really it is important and valuable, it is time sensitive, and it is a good fit for your skills. So what's an example? You have to write a big proposal for a potential new client. They come to you, hey, can you write this proposal? And they take this 300 pages of background research and on your desk. Well, you know what? Writing a full proposal is probably not in your priority set if you didn't know it was coming. But it maybe there's a piece of it. They say, this is for the agricultural sector and nobody knows agriculture like you do. And you may say, okay, yeah, I think it absolutely makes sense for me to write the section about our experience in the agricultural sector, but I'm going to give you, a not me on all of the stuff about our whatever procurement stuff, those sorts of things. So thinking about here's the really valuable stuff that makes sense for me, and it's not all of it on the rest. So that's the fourth no, is to help them come to the conclusion that the most appropriate request of you is some piece of what they had initially thought, not all of it. All right, what's the final no? The final no, again, is not a full no. I call it not unless. Often people will be coming to you with things that you say, yep, meets criteria number 1. It's valuable. It's going to do something worth doing. Number 2, yep, it's time sensitive. It does need to be done now. Get it? It's going to meet number 3. You're going to say, yep, it is me. That does make sense. But you're going to say, but so do all these other things that I already committed to. So that's a situation for not unless. So not unless is, I hear you. This makes sense. I get it. Here's what's on my plate right now. I've promised this to finance. They're waiting on me for X, Y, and Z. And what you want them to come to the realization of is that you can't dump your previous commitments to jump onto their thing. But if they could support you or help you in renegotiating what you've committed, finding somebody else to do it, changing the deadlines, whatever else, then you would say, absolutely. I think that's a great use of my time. So that fifth no is, it's no unless you can create a situation where I have the resources to do it well, I have the time, you've helped me address my other priorities, whatever it is that you think needs to be true for you to take on that new responsibility and do it well. So there are your options. So when there's a task that someone's coming to you with, and you know that it's not the best use of your time, or at least it's not the best use of your time right now, rather than just giving them the no, because we're all for boundaries, but we want to establish those boundaries in ways that make sense and communicate them effectively. So your options, give them a not worth it, a not yet, a not me, a not all of it, or a not unless. Okay, saying no, I can't wait to share in the comments if you try one of these. How does it work when you ask questions? Can people get to the point of realizing for themselves that the best answer is not yet, or not you. I'm really interested to hear how it goes. So here is another, if that creates some conflict, here are some tips for how to deal with it if that gets contentious.